My name is Tim Hardy. I am a member of Covenant Presbyterian Church in College Station, and I'm here today to share a few words about my personal faith journey and the congregation that I belong to. Uh, I'm 75 years old. I was born in a rural community uh, where most of the people I knew were in some way or other related to or entwined with my family. Uh, my family was involved in ranching and farming and later land development. Uh, we were 12 miles from the only store in the area. We were 12 miles from the only school in the area. Um, I'm the oldest of four children and grew up really not knowing anybody that wasn't a Christian. Uh, we all Everybody I knew went to church. It might be a different church, a different building, but in a small town, that's less of a barrier than it becomes as the churches get larger and the cities get larger and lands in the sand are drawn more heavily. Um, we all went to each other's vacation Bible schools. As a Methodist, we had revivals occasionally, and the Baptist and some of the Catholic usually came. Uh, we went to the Baptist revivals. We ate dinner with the Catholics, particularly during Lent. Uh, Small town. Uh, if somebody moved in, which in my area was relatively rare, one of the first questions they were asked is, "What church do you attend?" And an honest answer was expected, and it was rarely none. Uh, you didn't hear anybody say they were an atheist or an agnostic or a non-believer in some form or another. Everybody had a church tie. That's not true. May have not been true then either, but I was a child and that's the way it looked. Um, Today, we have a lot of people with no connection whatsoever to a church. They may be believers. They may be very strong believers, but they don't participate with organized religion. That's really a shame. Organized religion is Christ's best way of putting a crew together to accomplish larger tasks. But even as an individual, there are tasks for each and every one of us. I grew up thinking, or coming to think in my teen years, that I was called to the ministry. Uh, I uh, took on a role a good Christian teenager. I usually led a lot of the youth activities at my home church. I almost always got elected chaplain of clubs and organizations at school. As I got a little older, I had the opportunity to stand in the pulpit and talk about a variety of subjects. Uh, Lay people in a Methodist church are not allowed to preach. We can speak on religious topics. Uh, Now I'm a Presbyterian, and basically it's the same thing. Um, it took me several years, uh, quite a few years, uh, to realize this image of myself and the path I thought I was following were basically incorrect. I was an arrogant, sinful young man. I did not truly live the life I wanted other people to think I lived. Um, During this period, I went off to college. I eventually met the young woman, believe it or not, at a church camp uh, that I married. Uh, then over the next 10, 15 years, I was not a good husband, not a good father, and very definitely not a good Christian, although I did maintain that image in the community to a large extent. I really don't know why my wife stayed with me. She had more than ample reason to leave, uh, but she did, and eventually she uh, gently and persistently whipped me into shape. Uh, I eventually also learned that I was not called to the ministry, I was not called to the pulpit, but I was called to a role in helping my fellow man. So I have done a bit of everything. I've run community centers, I've operated senior citizen centers, I've volunteered on crisis hotlines, I've helped feed meals, I've provided transportation, occasionally paid out of my own pocket for things that people needed. Um, Generally, I had sufficient resources to do what I was called upon to do. Uh, at times, my wife was not entirely sure I hadn't lost my mind, but that's separate. Um, our home was always open to people who needed a meal or a place to sleep or uh, anything. Um, as my children went through junior high and high school, particularly, uh, lots of kids came through our house. Uh, this was in the days when things were a little more relaxed than they are about kids in trouble, and occasionally the police department would call us up and ask us to come pick up a kid or take somebody in. They were in trouble, they had no place to go, and we had a reputation of being the people you could turn to help a kid out. Uh, it's been very heartwarming over the years to occasionally hear from one of these kids, and they would thank us for rescuing them, thank us for getting them back on a firm path. Um, it was funny. We tended to treat those kids the same way we dealt with stray dogs. The first thing we did was take them to the doctor and get them checked out. Then we would uh, take them someplace and buy them clothes if necessary. Depending on the age, we'd get them back in school or help them find a part-time job or whatever was necessary in their lives. Uh, we still are active in that to some extent. Um, we hosted several foreign exchange students over the years, none of whom had a strong Christian background, a couple of whom had none whatsoever. They learned a lot living with us. I don't know that any of them became firm Christians after going back home, but they learned about Christ. They learned what he meant in our lives and what he could mean in their lives. We still hear from part of them, and they've all turned into good, strong citizens in their communities. Like I say, I don't know how many of them may or may not be Christian. Uh, Over the years, uh, I have spent most of my professional career in not-for-profit management, trying to run programs that in some way or other reflected Christ's mission on earth, uh, helping people who needed help. Uh, my wife was ended up in a somewhat parallel career field. The difference was that she generally was fairly well paid, and I generally was not. But we made it through. Um, we're both uh, strong, believing Christians. I understand that I am going to trip and fall at times. Um, I sometimes slip into my old ways and have this feeling that I'm the one responsible. I have to solve a problem. I have to take care of something. And generally, when I do that, things really get screwed up and it creates problems. And I sit down with the Lord and say, look, I'm sorry. I got off track again. I know you're in charge, but I sometimes forget. Um, that's happened 2 or 3 times lately and kind of brought me back to my senses in some way. I apologized to people, and Lord and I had some long discussions. We need to remember that in many ways, the easiest part of Christianity is to accept Christ as our Savior and accept that we're going to heaven through grace, not through works of our own. That we need to open our hearts and our minds to God, to listening to what He has to say to us. The hard part is going out and acting, or more precisely, doing Christ's work. It can be hard. It can be challenging. It can be dangerous at times. It definitely won't make you a whole lot of friends in some neighborhoods. We're Each and every one of us is made in the image of God. That is hard to remember. We tend to fall into the trap of thinking the image of God is whatever we are. But everybody on the face of the earth is a distinctly unique human being. So they are all made in the image of God, no matter how radically different they might be from our image, that the image that we maintain in our heads, they are still the image of God. And as we need to remember the great commandments, we need to love God with all our heart, all of our mind, and we need to treat our neighbors as we would like to be treated ourselves. And our neighbors are every other human being on the face of the earth. I am not sure we have to like all of our neighbors, but we do have to love all of our neighbors. And sometimes that's quite difficult. At this point in our lives, my wife and I are blessed to belong to Covenant Presbyterian. When we walked in January of 09, we were instantly embraced and pulled into what is basically a family here at the church. We knew we were going to join the church first Sunday we were here. It took us a month or so to get it done. This last Sunday, we had a young man visit with us on Sunday services. First time he was here, he decided to join, and 3 days later, he's at the session meeting joining the church. I I like to feel that shows that we're doing something right as a congregation, that we clearly show the love of God, and we clearly welcome everybody that walks in the door. Um, Even those whom society has labeled as horrible sinners or losers, as misfits, as unwanted, unwashed. Uh, that's not a problem here. You're you exist as an image of God. Uh, it is you and God have to come to uh, an understanding of what you need to be doing as a follower. The rest of us are here to hold you, comfort you, support you, pray for you, but not point fingers, not not to shout at you, not to tell you you're going to hell. Uh, we need to remember that every one of us is a sinner. There are no little sins or big sins. It's just sin. Um, and we would all go to hell except for the grace of God. And that's not our decision to make. That's each. It's not our decision to make for other people. It's a decision we have to make for ourselves. Um, so come join us. Come visit with us. 10:30 on Sunday mornings. Um, you're going to be welcome with a handshake, um, questions, information. We're almost immediately going to start telling you about us and asking you about yourself. Uh, there's always a cup of coffee. There's some cookies. We'll try, whoever greets you, we'll try and find other people in the congregation that share things career-wise or neighborhood-wise or something, so that you feel more comfortable immediately. And after all these years, uh, the only thing that keeps me going uh, is my faith. And those days that I wake up and feel that I am off track or not performing properly as one of God's tools here on earth, those can be rough days. Those are the days you sit in your chair and close your eyes and pray for a while and just try and get things straightened out again. Going back to my wife and my family, um, like I say, we met at a church camp. We got married about a year later. We went through a lot of years when she would have been fully justified in divorcing me or killing me and burying me in the backyard or almost anything else she wanted to do. I was not anything like I should have been in those days. But last week we celebrated our 55th wedding anniversary. Um, we had two children, a girl and a boy that were born to us that have grown up to be pretty decent human beings. Uh, a few years back, the Lord dropped a teenager in our lap that came from a very dysfunctional and dangerous background. And a couple of years ago now, we adopted him. He's, he's still a work in progress. And as 70-year-old parents, we're having to learn that the teenage world out there is entirely different than it was when we raised the first two. But we're getting there. He's a good kid, and he's going to make a good adult one of these days. We have 5 grandchildren, uh, 5 great-grandchildren, 4 of whom were acquired through a grandson's marriage. We have a beautiful and wonderful daughter-in-law. We have 2 granddaughter-in-laws that are just great people. We've been blessed in many ways, uh, and we like to feel that we have contributed just a little bit, the best we could to making it a slightly better world than it would have been without us. Um, and that's a role each and every one of us can play. Each and every one of us should fill. Um, God gives us all gifts. He gives us all tasks to perform. It may take a long time to discern what those gifts and those tasks are. It may take a while to understand that He will equip you to accomplish that. It's not going to be easy. You're going to stumble. You're going to fall. You're going to fail, and He's going to pick you up and dust you off a bit and put you back on the path, and you're going to go at it again. Uh, Success is not guaranteed. There are tasks that we are challenged to accomplish that won't be accomplished in our lifetimes. Uh, but every little brick we can put in the structure will pay off someday for someone. Uh, so I urge every one of you to sit down, think about your life as it is today, check yourself, check your soul, check your mind, and see, evaluate for yourself where you stand in relation to God and Christ Jesus. Um, and encourage yourself to do more if you can, to do better if you can. And remember that you can come to Covenant Presbyterian or any other strong, uh, welcoming, accepting, supporting congregation. And remember that churches are not churches are not places where you go and pat each other on the back. Churches are places where you go and remind yourself that you're not alone, that there are other people that you can talk to that fully understand what you're saying because it's in their lives too. Um, I had a minister when I was very young who compared church to a filling station. You ran all week, and then you came in on Sundays, and you got to fill up so you could run again the next week. Um, Being a Christ follower today, feeding the hungry, uh, clothing the naked, welcoming the stranger. That's not really what society at the moment encourages, but it's absolutely necessary, and as Christ followers, as Christians, we should be standing out, doing that stuff uh, with a firm stance and no concern about uh, our personal reputations or whether or not the neighbors approve. It's just, if we have accepted Christ, if we're trying to follow His path, it's simply what we have to do. Come join us. Come add your strengths and your weaknesses to what makes the covenant family, and I think you'll be better for it, and the world will be better for it. So pray constantly. I learned long ago that prayer is not required to be a formal conversation. The Lord knows what's going on in my head. He knows what I'm concerned about. He knows my weaknesses. I trust that He'll assist in His own time, in His own way. I understand that I may not recognize that assistance. I may not at times even like that assistance, but it's there. I don't feel a need to repeat the same prayer constantly. He knows when I'm concerned about somebody's health or a problem that needs to be resolved. My prayers are not meant to attract His attention or remind Him of something I think He's overlooked. Once it comes into my head, once I have expressed it in a prayer, that's it. He's not gonna. He knew it before I did anyway. So jump out there and be a good Christ follower. You may never be remembered as anything special in the world outside of your family and your immediate circle. But if you do the Lord's work, trust the Lord and trust yourself that you are going to do maybe just the tiniest thing that brings us closer to the kingdom of God, whether you or your neighbors ever understand that or not. So, come see us Sunday. I'll be standing near the back of the sanctuary and happy to see you. And the Lord will meet you outside the front door and bring you right on in. So close the prayer you need to open and close every day with is, "This is the day the Lord has made. Thanks." And at my age, every day is a very definite gift, and I do say thanks every day. And now, goodbye. Y'all have a good day.